Hello crafty friends and welcome to my channel. I'm Adrienne Bosey of Alice Scraps Wonderland. Welcome to part 2 of my spring inspired mini album. This second and final installment is all about how to decorate your mini album with Sizzix die cuts and pretty papers and ephemera. Make sure you stick around until the end where I'll share a full flip through of this album. If you missed part 1 of the tutorial, or you just want to check out the supply list, I have links to everything you need listed in the description box below. Now let's get right into this tutorial. When we last left off, we had finished building the mini album itself using Chipboard and Sizzix texture roll. These blank chipboard pages are ready to be filled with all of the pretty things. Start by tracing an extra chipboard piece or the template you created onto various pieces of patterned paper to cover the pages of your mini album. I'm using Prima Marketing's In Full Bloom collection, but you can use any spring-themed paper collection you want. Prima just released Serene Petals, which I think would be perfect for this mini album. I trace and cut out enough of these pieces of patterned paper to cover each page, front and back, plus the inside front and back covers. I also traced 2 extras so I can create internal page flips. Score your internal page flips on one side 1/4 inch in. This next step is optional, but I added some stitching using a sewing machine around each of the pages for a bit of texture. Glue your internal flip page to a regular page. I used the edge of a ruler to help me bend at the score line. Using scraps of paper, create a little flip book. I didn't use any specific measurements, but you want to make sure it fits on whatever page you glue it to later. I decided to make the pages of this flip book different lengths. I also created some pockets to hold journaling cards and tags. Using the Sizzix scoring board and trimmer, cut a pocket to the size you'll need. Don't forget that you want to have a little wiggle room, so it needs to be wider than your tags and cards. Plus, you need to have at least 1/4 inch extra on the bottom and the 2 sides for the tabs you'll use to glue it to the page. I use a small stacked circle die to create the notch in the top of the pocket. Once that notch is cut, you can score for your tabs and fold at the score lines. Then notch off the tab corners with a pair of scissors. I added lace trim by sewing it to my pages and the flip book, but I also have this Pom Pom Trim. I'm not an experienced sewer, so I hot glue this pom trim to the chipboard base page. Then I die cut a lot of florals, butterflies, and the watering can from the same patterned paper collection I used for the base pages. I've already glued the layers together off camera. I've planned out where I want all of the pages, each pocket and tag that I cut, and more, so you'll see that I organized them within the mini album as I work. Just like I'm doing here, you'll find it easier to decorate your pages before gluing them into your mini album, especially if your album doesn't lay completely flat on all of your pages. I use foam adhesive, liquid glue, and hot glue to add my elements. When decorating your pages, keep in mind the clearance between each of your pages if you are adding dimensional paper flowers or using foam adhesive. You'll want to ensure that you aren't decorating your pages in a way that your album starts to become too full, unless that is the look you are going for. I wait to glue all of the pages in until the very end, but you can glue them in as you go if you like. To glue the pockets in place, I start by gluing the bottom tab down first. Then I add liquid glue to the side tabs and glue those in place. You will see me add white cardstock mats throughout this album, and that is where I'll be adding some pictures later. I plan on taking some photos of my niece this spring in my garden for this mini album. If you are doing the same, just remember to not add glue to any embellishments where they may overlap with the photo, so tuck things under the mat or use a bit of foam adhesive to pop elements up that overlap the photo a bit. I'm just using something heavy to hold the internal page flips open while I work on the two inside pages. And I always find it handy to place ephemera and prepared die cuts into trays so I can easily leaf through them to find what I want during larger projects like this. When adding decorated tags to your pockets, keep your more dimensional tags to the front and place tags where everything is glued flat against the tag or card to the back. This will help keep dimensional dies from getting smushed. Stickers with a clear backing are perfect for adding to mini albums, and I use them to create embellishment clusters on or fill in some negative space that I think needs a bit more decoration. Keep in mind that these internal page flips will take up more of that clearance, so keep the embellishment dimension to a minimum on them. I left the front of this page flip pretty sparse, but the background paper was just too pretty to cover up. I like to use these less dimensional Prima flowers inside mini albums. I also like to take the bulky flower centers off and cut up the flowers for layering underneath items. They're perfect for pairing with floral die cuts from Sizzix. And I continue to add elements with many of the same techniques. I'll let this play out for you just so you can get some ideas for different embellishment clusters. This latest Catherine Pooler Sizzix release also has some sweet stamps, and I used a couple of these, stamping them in archival ink onto some of the die cuts I made from the scalloped circles, borders, and banners die set. On the inside of this little flip book, I only use liquid or tape runner adhesives. Using foam adhesive here would make this too bulky. And when adhering the flip to the album page, I make sure the paper is fully on the page, but I let the lace trim hang over the edge a bit. Then I go through and use tape runner adhesive to glue the decorated pages in place. I use a little bit of liquid adhesive later on, but you'll want to keep this type of adhesive to a minimum, or you'll find that your papers will wrinkle from the moisture. Now that the inside is taken care of, we can finally decorate the outside. Start by arranging a ton of tulips in the watering can die cut. The first couple of layers of tulips get stuck to a bit of tape runner adhesive on the back of the watering can. Then add a bit of foam adhesive and arrange more layers of tulips until you are happy with it. To make this piece easier to glue to your project and to hide the mess on the back, add some more foam adhesive and cut another of the watering can base and glue it to the back. I added a bit of liquid glue on the foam adhesive to give me some wiggle time to get the die perfectly placed. Then I begin gluing down Prima flowers, die-cut leaves, lace, decorative chipboard, and more to the front of the album with hot glue. I'll let this process play out a bit for you so you can see the layering in action. And of course, the last step on any project is to add a little bling. I pop on some of the crystals from the Prima collection I'm using, plus some pink fresh jewels. And now for that flip through that I promised. I think there are so many fun elements in this mini album, and the Sizzix die cuts just make it extra special, adding an ethereal and dimensional touch to everything. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and to turn on notifications to get more inspiration like this. And until next time, happy crafting!